So welcome and thank you so much to Ali for coming on and joining us and sharing her expertise about how to prevent and also support our kids through those tech tantrums or tech meltdowns that we know that they can all have. So hi Ali, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Really grateful that you could join us. So I'll just read Ali's little bio so that you know her. She's trained in...
You made me sound really good.
Yeah, that's because you are. Trained in education and psychology, Ali has more than 15 years experience working holistically with families. With immense amounts of compassion and heart, her specialty is to emotionally support family members who are caring for loved ones with a disability. Ali is highly intuitive and brings unique insight and expertise in supporting sensitive souls to navigate difficult life situations and experiences. So hello to all of you who are watching live. What we're going to do tonight is Ali and I are going to chat for around about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So if you want to pop your questions in the comment box below, then we will endeavour to answer them at the end of our discussion. And if you're watching the replay, then please, if you've got any questions by the end of it, then please pop them in the comments below. And Ali has promised to be around over the next week or so to come back in and answer them. And yeah, I might have something to contribute as well with that. So let's talk about tech tantrums or tech meltdowns. So the first thing that I'm curious about is I'd like you to hear you talk about what causes them, because we all know that, you know, a normal fun-loving, you know, calm, quiet kid can spend an hour glued to a screen and you ask them to get off and they completely lose the plot. So can you talk us through what actually happens in terms of, yeah.
Okay, so this is probably the part that I have least knowledge of in terms of the brain structures and hormones and that kind of stuff. But essentially what we're looking at is your brain gets used to, like whenever you're glued to a screen, the screen and the electronics that are inside the devices and the colors and all of the exciting bits that make up the screens excite the brain. It switches on and it's like, oh, hello, colors and shiny bits and fun stuff and let's wake up, right? And after a little while, your brain actually adjusts. Yeah, it becomes used to being in that more alert state. And the longer you're on it, the more alert it becomes. Yeah. So when you try to then remove the screens and remove all the shiny, exciting bits, with all of the hormones racing around your brain and your system, your brain then needs to readjust and come back down. Yeah? It's very much like a high, being on a high. And the research that has been done, or some of the research that I'm aware of that has been done, is that it's very much like the high that you would get if you're on drugs.
Yeah.
Because it's the same parts of the brain that are being activated and excited, right?
Yeah.
So when you remove the screens, you then need to make that readjustment to come down off that high. And that's where you get all the temper tantrums and the meltdowns and all those kinds of, ooh, what's going on here? I don't know how to cope with this. This is too much for me.
Yeah.
Let's just yell and scream and rant and rave and do all of the other things that kids do.
Yeah. The other thing I was wondering about, I was thinking about it today actually, is that generally when our body is excited or aroused like that hormonally, we're designed to move. So if we get excited or we get nervous or something, you know, we're designed to fight or flee. You know, does some screens evoke that kind of response, and therefore when you take them away, you've got all this energy in your body and you just got to go and you just got to get it out somehow?
Absolutely. I think like when I think about it logically, I think when we actually remove the screens, Like our body is so used to being in that alert mode that it gets used to it and it's quite comfortable with it, right? As soon as you kick us back into discomfort, our survival system kicks in and we feel unsafe.
Right.
So, and that feeling of being unsafe is really important in terms of our survival system.
Yeah.
Because we will then go and look for anything that we can look for, anything that we can find to regain that feeling of safety.
Yeah.
Because we're biologically programmed to do that.
Yeah. So as parents, you know, it's not, for most parents, it's not really an option to say, well, let's just ban screens altogether, although I'm sure a lot of parents would like that. And in fact, actually, since I've started this group, and you know, at times over the years, part of me kind of pines for, actually it was that question about you know, the people's responses to the question about, did you have screens when you were young? Like, what did you have? And, you know, quite a few of my friends and colleagues, like, they had a TV, but really it was just watched maybe for an hour at night and maybe on a Saturday morning, and that's it. And, you know, there was so much more freedom to play outside. And I was feeling a bit nostalgic, thinking, oh, I wonder what life would be like, you know, if we could just go back to that for a while. And then I was dreaming about going to live in a commune where, you know, there's no technology. I wouldn't do that, but it was just interesting. So given that screens are, you know, they're a part of our lives for most of us, how could we best manage our kids? And, you know, especially if do you think some kids are more prone to meltdowns than others?
I do, absolutely. I do. When you've got particularly children that are sensitive, and here I'm talking about the kids that have, like, they're quite overwhelmed quickly with bright lights and loud noises and all of that kind of like sounds and smells and tastes and textures and emotions and all those other things. These are the kids that generally would have a diagnosis of ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorders, anxiety, all of those kinds of things, right? If you think about those kinds of things, what happens for those kids is that they are overwhelmed by being in school, right? By having to listen to the teacher for 6 hours in the day, with all of the other kids screaming in the background, trying to process instructions and concentrate on schoolwork and be social with the other kids and all of that kind of stuff. So before they even leave the school grounds, they're in overload mode.
Yep.
These kids need some kind of option to dissipate all of that energy and get rid of that all of that energy, and come down from that, because otherwise you're going to get meltdowns even before the screens come into the picture.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think many parents have experienced that. You know, when the kid, the teacher says, "Oh, little Johnny, he or she is just so well behaved at school," and then the kid comes home and they run amok, and the parent just goes, "What did I do?"
Yep, it's my fault. I'm a bad parent, all of that.
Yeah, it does feel like that sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I really empathize with that. But I will say now what I tell all of the families that I work with who tell me that. And like, if I had dollar for every time I've been told that, I'd be on the road to being rich. Hey, it's so common, so common. It's not your fault as a parent. Yeah. These are just simply sensitive kids.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is to find a way for them to dissipate all of that energy and all of that extra stuff that they're carrying in their container, before they can start looking at being able to process your instructions and do their evening routines and get the homework done and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So what are some examples of those things that they can do to help calm themselves down after a crazy day at school?
Right. So I do believe that screens can be a really useful tool when kids are in that state.
Yep.
Because it allows them to escape. It allows them to shake off some of their energy and calm themselves and soothe themselves so that they can feel safe.
Yeah.
It's just that what you need to do once they're in that state. And a lot of kids will then put the screens down when they're ready, when they're calm, they'll just regulate it themselves. Yeah. But there are going to be other kids that can't regulate it themselves, and you need to be that guide and that mentor for them. So it can be helpful to do other things such as being around nature. A lot of kids will walk along and pick up rocks and put their rocks in their pockets and just have something to fiddle with. It's kind of like they take a bit of nature home with them. And you find all kinds of things in their pockets when you're doing their laundry, right?
Yep.
Other kids respond well to jumping on the trampoline, so they've got that movement. Other kids will rock like back and forward like this, side to side. Some kids will line things up and create order. Playing with Lego. It can be like any range of things, and kids will intuitively be drawn to what works for them. Yeah. So I encourage parents, let me get those words out right. I encourage parents to work with their children's natural interests. All right. If they're good in the garden and weeding and getting their hands dirty and stuff, go with that. Yeah. If they're good on the trampoline, then go with that. If they want to read a book, then go with that. Have a bath. Just being able to ground themselves. Does that make sense? So anything they're drawn to. Yep.
So would you recommend that they do something like that before they pick up screens when they get home from school?
I would absolutely encourage that, yes.
Yeah.
But just be aware that some kids, if they're completely overwhelmed, if they're used to screens to help them through that process, it's probably best just to let them have that screen time. And then support them to know when they've had enough.
Yeah. So talk to me about that. Let's just say the kid comes home from school, they're exhausted, and you say to them, okay, you can have an hour on the iPad or an hour on the PlayStation. Then once that hour's up, how can we transition them off that so that it makes it a bit easier for them?
Well, it's about like that exact word that you've just said. It's about transition. So it's about coming in, like if you're giving them an hour, come in at the 40-minute mark, for example, and just give them a heads up. Hey, that you've got about 20 minutes left. While you're still on there, have a think about what you'd like to do next, and like just have that little bit of chat while they're actually on the screens. How are you feeling? What's happening inside your body? All that kind of stuff. And then give them another reminder at 10 minutes and then at 5. And as you're doing these reminders and this transitioning kind of process, just being really gentle, calm tone of voice as much as possible, and just be really encouraging. And then when the time is up, again, just being really calm and encouraging and supportive as much as possible, given that we're all at the edge of our limits, right? And just redirecting then to that next activity. And providing some of those alternative options. Highly, like a lot of, let me start that again. One of the things I often do with families is to create a box, like just a shoebox will work. So, and I call it like a self-care box, and inside that box, they will put all of the activities that really work to help soothe and calm. And when it's time, they then get to go and choose something out of that box and do that activity.
I think that's a really important thing and that's, it's on my list of things to do, is to compile a list of resources with ideas of non-screen activities, because, especially during COVID, like kids have become so dependent on screens. They don't, when they're off, you know, and I think one lady even posted in the group, when they hop off screens, they're just completely lost because they just don't know how to amuse themselves anymore, because the screens are just, you know, they tell you what to do, basically. You don't have to think much. And so, you know, to have, I think that's a really important thing, is to have that box or that list on the fridge for the kids to go and have a look at, and so they can go and choose what to do.
And create it in a way that works for your family. If that's not inside a shoebox or whatever kind of box, that's fine. It can be that list on the fridge, or it can be the note that's on the corkboard in the bedroom, or on the mirror in the bathroom, or like wherever you want to put it. And like, get your kids involved in actually creating that, putting inside whatever vessel you choose, the activities that really work for them.
And another lady's just commented and said, what happens when the next activity is just another screen? My son will bounce from PlayStation to phone to YouTube, and it's so hard to get him to find something else, and it always ends up in a battle. So just, you know, this is something that we found was quite a common concern for parents when we did our market research for the ScreenCoach product. And one thing that ScreenCoach does that no other solution does to help manage screen time is that it actually tracks the child's time across multiple devices. So if they've got 3 hours screen time each day, they get, you know, and they want to use that whole 3 hours on the iPad, they can. If they have an hour on the iPad and they stop playing that, and then they pick up their console, their PlayStation or whatever, then they'll use up another hour. So it'll keep track of their time. And then it'll give them a warning, so that it will remind them when it's time to get off. And you know, and then it will restrict the access to the devices, and then they'll have to go and find a non-screen activity to do to earn them points to you know,
back again.
To then earn more screen time and be back on again. So I mean, it is, especially with older kids, I think it's more, the older they get and the more familiar with screens they get and the more devices they've got, I think the more difficult it is to get them doing other things. But we've been using ScreenCoach for about 2 weeks now, and my daughter, who's 11, she's actually really enjoying it, because we've been working really hard to get this product to trials, and we haven't been giving her much attention, ironically. But she knows that her time's nearly up, and she actually said to me, Mum, she came out and she said, Mum, I'd really like to do a jigsaw. And so we went in the cupboard and we found a jigsaw, and she's been absolutely loving doing a jigsaw. And I think that's another beautiful, calm, soothing activity that a child could do after school. Reading, of course, I know a lot of kids don't like to read, but for those kids who do, and I think with reading, it's about finding suitable books as well that are fun and easy for them.
And at their level.
And so the other thing that I was going to ask you about was, what if we've asked them to get off and they do have a massive tantrum? How can we support them through, you know, the thrashing? And, you know, some kids, we spoke to a few parents actually, where, you know, they've had their kids like punch the wall, and, you know, they've really been out of control, just out of that frustration because they just want to play so badly.
All right, so this is kind of where you need to be really aware of those early signs of stress. Okay? So I encourage parents to, when they're starting this kind of process, to kind of keep a bit of a journal, right? And on that, like, you set up a table and you put the date and the time, and this is what happens, and this is the reaction that you got, and this happened before, this happened after, what led up, what happened, you know what I mean? Like, you use that over a period of a few weeks, and you start to see patterns about what's actually triggering some of this stuff. Right? And you also keep track of what are the signs they exhibit in their body. So, for example, do they start clenching their fists? Do they start getting snappy at you early on? Do they start fidgeting and their eyes are all over the place? Do they start jumping up and down in their chair and get really excitable? Right?
Or screaming at the game.
Right. So all of these things, and even keeping track before they're on the screens, during and then after as well.
Yeah.
So it all gives you information. It arms you with a really comprehensive amount of information about what's actually going on for them, right?
Yeah.
When you can see those signs, you can respond to your child and just reflect to them what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So, for example, like I'm pretending that you're 10 years old here, Steph, right?
Yeah.
Because yours is the only face I can see, so I'm going to go with that. Hey, Steph, I'm noticing at the moment that your shoulders are up around your ears. What's happening with that? Did you notice that about yourself? Or I'm noticing that you're squinting at the screens. What's happening?
Yeah.
So just being really curious and bringing their awareness to what you're actually seeing.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can also reflect what's happening within yourself as well.
Yeah.
So you can say, hey, Steph, I'm noticing that my muscles are feeling really tight. I feel like I need to go outside and go for a walk to kind of loosen things up. Do you want to come for a walk with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Like,
so you're teaching them by example as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so yes, it's modeling, but it's also bringing their awareness to what you're experiencing as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be around any specific issue. It can just be general, yeah?
Yep.
The idea is that you're just raising that awareness, yeah?
Yeah.
And after a while, you hopefully will find that they will start to notice the signs themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
wow. What a powerful life skill for,
absolutely.
for people, for their lives. Like if a lot of adults were able to notice when they're starting to, those early signs of being riled up or whatever. Yeah, it's really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say to your child, I'm feeling really fidgety and a little bit upset, I feel like going for a jump on the trampoline. Do you want to come and have some fun with me?
Yeah.
And if they say no, that's cool. You can just do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But by just raising their awareness and you following through on what you need and like that self-care that you need, then that gives them the example and the opportunity to follow suit.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
And
so I thought it might be nice to go through some triggers. So one of the things that I can think of is that perhaps they're a bit, in terms of what might trigger a tantrum, is that they might be a bit tired. They might have had, it might be late in the school term. They might have had, not very great sleep. They might have been feeling under particular pressure at school with friendship groups, or, there might be some tension at home. The particular game that they're playing. I know that there's parents who say there are specific games that they've just had to ban because the child just developmentally can't manage with them.
Yep.
Can you think of any others?
You might have cut the toast the wrong way.
Yes. The parent might be in the bad books for.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody might have sat in their seat if they were watching something on TV and somebody sits in the seat that they were in, and that prevents them from going back to where they were. There are so many things.
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just makes, because there are so many things, it makes it really difficult to catch it sometimes. Yeah. And no matter how alert you are and how aware you are to what's going on in their environment and in your environment, sometimes you won't catch it.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
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 Give yourself a little bit of a break. You're not superhuman.
Yeah.
It's okay not to catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be done perfectly.
Yeah. So if a kid, if you don't catch it and if the kid starts lashing out, one thing I know that we did with our son, he would, he's very mild mannered and he would very rarely lose his cool, but when he did, it would be like whoosh.
Yeah.
And so from a young age, we would teach him that when he's feeling really, really angry like that, to get on his bed and to like punch the pillow or, you know, something safe to, is that something that you would recommend?
Yep.
I mean, it's hard to do in the moment, but to talk to your child about how they can, what else could they do?
So that's where that awareness stuff that I was talking about before comes in really helpful.
Yeah.
Becomes really helpful. Because when you catch those signs early, you're then able to intervene with strategies like that, right?
Yeah.
When the body is so overwhelmed, right, and they're past that tipping point, right, their window of tolerance, so to speak.
Yep.
Once that window, that point has been passed,
yeah,
there's not a whole lot you can do to contain it.
Yep.
And it just needs to burn itself out.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And the best thing you can do in that situation is remove everybody else from harm's way.
Yep.
Yeah. And reduce the stimulation in that room.
Okay.
Okay. So you can, if you've got dimmer switch on the lights, you can turn down the lights a little bit. Yeah. Turn down the TV.
Yep.
Or even turn it off.
Yep.
And if you get an adverse reaction and they turn it back on, that's fine. Just leave it. Just you remove yourself, right?
Yep.
So it's about keeping yourself safe. And like if you can reduce the stimulation that's in that room,
yes,
in that space, whatever space you're in, that can be helpful for them to self-soothe.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You could also introduce some tools, equipment, if you like, things like sensory blankets, like weighted blankets and stuff, or a punching bag, or a fidget spinner,
okay,
or a soft toy, whatever they use generally to self-soothe.
Yeah, okay.
And just put it, like, don't necessarily give it to them and say, here, Steph, have a play with this. Because they're so high. Yeah. They're not going to take in what you've said. Yeah. And it's likely to inflame it even further. Yeah. Yeah. But if you can just bring it into their space and like put it on the coffee table or on the couch or somewhere in that room. Yes. And let them find it. Yeah. They can access it if they want to. Yeah. Yeah. So it's about making it available to them. Right? Yeah. And then once they're back on equilibrium, once they're calm again and they're soothed and they're going to be super tired and like they're going to be just depleted, their energy and their emotions are really depleted. Yes. They might be sorrowful, like full of regret for what they've done. And they might feeling guilty, shamed. Yeah. Yeah. All those kinds of things. They might want to cling to you. Mm-hmm. But if you're up there as well, you can be like, oh, I can't do this. And they're trying to cling to you and they've just released all of that energy. Yeah. But they need that comfort and support from you and that connection to your heart. Mm. It's going to be quite difficult for you to then embrace them and reconnect with them, right? Yeah. And that's okay. But just be aware that your own self-care stuff is really important as well, right? Yeah. So once the episode has dissipated, then do some stuff for you. Yep. Yep. Such as go and have a nice hot bath. Yeah. Phone a friend. Phone a friend. Yep. Go for a nice walk. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Light a candle. Pray. Yeah. Whatever it is that you do that will bring you back to your ground. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I've just thought of that we didn't sort of mention is
And, you know, I think that we take it for granted a little bit because our devices and our Wi-Fi and our screens are so prevalent now, is the electromagnetic fields.
Yeah. So I have met somebody, and you probably know this lady, Steph, Diane, who is an expert on the EMFs. And she has taught me that every device, wired and non-wired, and things like power lines outside and electrical lines and all those kinds of things emit radiation.
Yeah.
And we can be incredibly impacted by that.
Yeah.
Emotionally, physically, health-wise, it actually causes all kinds of health conditions.
Yeah.
Energetically, it messes with our digestion and our emotions and everything.
Yeah. So I guess it's even more in reason for, you know, kids to have that balance of off-screen and on-screen activities, but also I think it's important to just mention and highlight the importance of being in nature. We're so lucky where we live that we've got a creek close by where we go walking quite regularly, and the kids just really love to, even though it's in the middle of suburbia, when you're there, you can't really see any houses and it feels like you're in the bush. And, you know, it's kind of a daily little ritual that we've had, which has been really special. And I think, you know, it's that grounding and earthing and energy that's really important as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'll just have a quick look and see if we've got any more questions. I don't think we do.
Can I just, if it's okay, just come back to the emotional management stuff?
Yeah, please. I was just going to ask you if there's anything else you wanted to add. Sure.
Yeah, I think when we're working on supporting kids to recognize their emotions and manage them, a big part of that is around that awareness stuff that I was talking about before, right? Yeah. And we also need to be using the emotional words.
Okay.
So when you're listening to your child, right, usually children, well, human beings, I think it goes for all of us, when we feel like we've been heard, we feel safe.
Yeah.
Right? If we have somebody, like for example, Steph, if I say to you, Tom, don't bother with that. That's a silly way to feel. That's a silly way to think.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Like you don't understand what I'm going through.
Exactly. And completely dismissed, right?
Yeah.
But if I said to you, that must be really hard for you, Steph, to feel that way, to feel so anxious, and really like non-judgmentally, it sounds like that's been really difficult for you to cope with.
Yeah.
That's a big feeling to hold inside.
Yeah.
That feels huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is that different? How does that feel different?
Oh, I just feel calm and, you know, normalized, and like you really understand what's going on for me.
Yeah. So just be really aware, I guess, of really hearing what your kids are saying to you.
Yeah. Because as an adult, you know, we don't have that experience of growing up with screens. Right. And so we don't understand how important they are, especially to, I think, slightly older kids. It's such their, you know, it's their whole world. It's where they connect with their friends. It's their sense of belonging. It's their entertainment. And, you know, especially during COVID when, you know, in Melbourne, like Anthony can't even see his friends. He's 16 and it's so important to have that connection. So, you know, to sit down with your kids and to try and understand what they love about it and why it's so important to them, and how they feel when they have to go do something else, especially if they're a bit lonely. That's really hard.
Yeah. Ask them, like, if you can become curious and not expect any specific responses, right?
Yes.
open to whatever's said. Yeah.
Yep.
Asking questions like, how is that for you? How is having a screen helpful for you? What does it enable you to do?
Yep. What do you love about it?
Yeah.
Mm.
And just be open to whatever response you get.
Yeah.
It might be having eye-opening experiences when you get responses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
If you interact with your kids with the aim of understanding where they're coming from, you will then be much more able to meet their needs.
Yep.
And get your needs met, i.e. reduce screen time at the same time.
Yeah. And the thing that I found when I speak to kids is that most kids deep down know that lots of screens is not good for them.
Yeah.
And so, but they would never admit that to their parents usually, because then the parents, they'll think, oh, they'll use that as ammunition, whatever. Yeah. But if I sit down and have a heart-to-heart with either of my kids like that and say, you know, I'm observing this and this and this when you're having too much screens, what's your feeling about that? What do you think we should do about it? Then, you know, I'm actually surprised that they say, oh, you know, I really should be, you know, doing more drawing or a jigsaw puzzle, or, you know, my son loves walking. And then
you're just operating from a very different space, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of trying to tell them what to do and control them, you're having a conversation and they're having the input instead of you telling them what to do, because none of us like to be told what to do.
And at the same time, you're raising their own awareness. You're providing them with autonomy.
Yep.
Yeah?
Exactly.
And you are giving them control.
Yep.
And from a survival perspective, control means safety.
Okay. Yep.
So when you're looking at the neurobiology, the brain science behind it, one of our, when I was doing my master's degree in psych, and I had a neuroscience class, my textbook actually says for people to feel safe, they need to feel like they have the maximum number of choices available to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Choice equals control.
Yep.
Control equals safety.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So if you can give your kids the autonomy, the awareness, so it becomes about understanding where they're from, where they're coming from, helping them to understand where they sit, helping them to understand the emotions that are coming up for them. And then giving them or having that discussion around what do you think is best for you?
Yeah.
Because if they're aware of the impact that it has on their systems, and if they're aware of how they feel when they're on the screen, so like an experiment with the time, like if you give them an hour, how, like, just check in with them at the end of that hour. How does your body feel right now? Do you feel tight anywhere? Or do you feel nice and chilled and relaxed? Yeah. And just experiment with the different lengths of time doing that check-in at periodically through that time frame, right? And the more aware they become, the more able they will be to manage their own time. Yeah,
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Empower them to have that self-awareness, or enough self-awareness, so that they will then take ownership of, hey, like, I'm not feeling great right now. Maybe I'm going to go and jump on the trampoline for a little bit. Yeah. Or get my hands in some dirt. And get messy that way. So that I can calm myself down.
And Leanne's just asked, how do I get my kids off games I don't approve of once they've started playing? And I think it's the same conversation in terms of talking about why you don't approve of those games. And again, talking about, you know, how they're feeling when they're playing different games, how they would feel if you were to ban that game, why it's important to them that they play it. and yeah, see if you can have a conversation, and if they really, really, really want to play it, maybe limit it to, you know, a short time, you know, a short period of time, if, you know, see if you can come to some compromise rather than, you know, continuously having a battle about it.
Mm-hmm. And also you could, depending on the age of the child, obviously.
Yeah.
If they're particularly older kids, you could also have a look at some research together.
Yes.
So let's check out the research on this violent video game that you really have to have, right?
Yeah.
What are studies saying about the impact of that on a child's brain?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look
So
at the
it's not just mum being an old school, you know, stick in the mud.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and if one of the reasons why they want to play is because all their friends play and that it's a really great strategy game, you know, I've had all these arguments from my son, then it's like, okay, well, let's find a game that still has really great strategy, that perhaps isn't as violent or doesn't have the same level of whatever it is, intensity or whatever it is, and you know, see if you can go find some friends to play that one with.
And let's put you in the leadership role.
Yes.
About you.
Yeah, encouraging others to come and join you in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
That can be super empowering as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, well, we need to wind it up. So it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on. Now, can you tell us about, if there's anyone who's watching, would like to have a consultation or two with you, for you to help them with their specific family's needs?
Absolutely. I would love to give you guys a special offer. I was talking to you earlier about this, Steph, but what I was thinking about is that, like, I would offer you guys 2 hours with me. Doesn't have to be in one hit. We can separate it, like an initial session and then a follow-up.
Yep.
And in that follow-up, we can kind of check in and see how things are going and stuff. So yeah, during that initial phase, you get to tell me everything that's going on with your family, and I can talk to you about what's working, what's not working, where are the issues, and what you'd like to achieve, what your goals are as parent, what you'd like for your kids, and then how to approach that with your kids.
Yeah.
How to put those boundaries in and be okay with putting those boundaries in. Yeah. A big part of what I do, like, it's not just on that surface level stuff that we're talking strategy. Big part of what I do is to support you in here to feel okay with implementing those boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to, like, if you've got stuff from your past coming up, I can support you to
work through that. Yeah.
So for that 2 hours, I'm offering that for you guys at a special price of $180.
Brilliant. So if people would like to get in touch with Ali, I'm going to pop her Facebook page link in the comments as soon as we're finished up here. And you can send her a message through that to make it time. So I highly recommend getting in contact with Ali if you want some personalised recommendations and just someone to support you if you're really concerned about your kids and their screen time, or just any general behavioural issues. Actually, she's brilliant with it. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight, Ali, and being our very first guest in the Screen Time Strategies group. I'm so grateful for your time, and yeah, really excited to put this replay up. And for anyone who's watching the replay, if you've got any questions, please comment below, and Ali will be in the group coming back to answer them in the best way she can. So
beautiful.
Thanks, Ali. Good night, everybody. Thanks to those who are watching.
Thanks, everybody. Great to be here.
Good night.
Bye.